Thank you very much for joining us today at our webinar, I Don't Want No Liquidation, How to Apply for Forced Conversion of Ozon Depositary Shares into Ordinary Shares as a Shareholder in Ozon. Today is the 29th of December 2025, and we're very happy to host this webinar today. Together with me is Irina Siberina. She is a Moscow-based lawyer that we frequently work with as EAHCISS, and EAHCISS is the European Association for Holders of Commonwealth of Independent State Securities. Irina has helped many investors with procedures necessary to protect their investments, such as forced conversion procedures in the past, but also claiming missed dividends. And recently, there was a so-called EAHCISS campaign to get shares in the Russian holding company of EAHCISS. Irina, is there something that you want to introduce yourself further with?
Thank you for introduction. I'm glad to participate in this webinar. I hope it will be useful for investors to participate in forced conversion of Ozon depository receipts. And nowadays, there are a lot of change in regulation, change in requirements of registrars, depositories, but main requirements in respect of the process of forced conversion and requirements for the documentation that should be provided for this purpose remain the same. So we can discuss them step by step.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Kay. I will refer to myself as Kay in this webinar as well, and I'm a member of the board of EAHCISS. Okay, so what we'll cover in this webinar today is a little bit of background of EAHCISS, some key points for you not to forget. Then we'll discuss forced conversion as a principle, the relevant legislation we'll discuss, and then we'll discuss how you will actually receive those ordinary shares in Ozon. We'll go into the procedure. We'll also touch upon sanction legislation, and we may have some time for questions if there are any. So a little bit of background on EAHCISS. EAHCISS is the European Association for Holders of Commonwealth of Independent State Securities. It was founded by investors from the Discord channel Russian ADRs, and it's registered in Amsterdam as an association in Dutch law. Investors can become a member of the association for €30 a year, and we always have vacancies for commissions, and we're still looking for members for the supervisory board as well. Please find our website for more info, and our website is www.eahciss.org. And you can contact us at our email address, contact@eahciss.org. So our goal as an association is to represent the interests of our members, of Western investors that invest in the Commonwealth of Independent States. And we try to maintain contacts with regulators as a part of that, legislators and other relevant stakeholders. We've also given interviews in the press in the past. We had a fairly large coverage in Bloomberg last year. And, we try to exchange and spread knowledge between the members, such as in this webinar. And we try to use the funds of the association to collectively hire experts or fund subscriptions to relevant resources. We're also trying to see if we can undertake collective legal action if appropriate. Some key points. Investors in Ozon now have a limited opportunity to convert their depositary shares, also called sometimes depositary receipts or ADS, ADRs, into Russian ordinary shares. So many people may know this procedure from back in 2022 when this procedure was taking place for Russian companies that had to stop their depositary programs abroad. The procedure is sometimes also called mandatory conversion, but the more common name is forced conversion. And it involves the conversion of depositary shares, in this case Ozon, on the basis of Russian legislation. So without approval or involvement of any Western broker or the Bank of New York Mellon as the depositary bank. It is therefore called forced because the Russian registrar that holds the ordinary shares that are underlying the depositary shares will forcefully remove those ordinary shares from the account of the depositary bank, in this case Bank of New York Mellon, and will credit them to the account of the investor that applied for the forced conversion procedure. And because of the complexity of the procedure, you will likely need help from a Russian representative. The deadline for this process is the end of March 2026. You really have to start right now in order to make the deadline. Is there anything you want to add, Irina?
Yes, I actually calculated the quantity of days, of working days, which are necessary to undergo provisional steps. And as per my calculation, it's 42 business days, and it will be divided into time slots necessary and provisionally steps to be in time, to apply in time. So let's see later.
Yeah, we'll touch upon that later. Absolutely. Then a little bit of a background on Ozon. Ozon is a major Russian online retailer. It is sometimes being compared as the Russian Amazon, although it's not that large as Amazon, but it has a similar business model as Amazon. So it's not only an online retailer, but they're also focusing on more IT services. They have a bank. They also try to start brokerage services. So it's more than just selling products online. It used to be a Cypriot company, or at least a holding company that people have shares in. Used to be a Cypriot company, and its depositary shares used to be traded on international exchanges. So it was traded on the Nasdaq exchange, but the ordinary Cypriot shares were not being traded. So these Cypriot shares were only in the shareholder register in Cyprus, but the depositary shares were being traded on international exchanges. And then on the 28th of February 2022, Nasdaq suspended the listing on the Nasdaq exchange. And from that point onwards, you could still trade Ozon depositary shares, but you had to do so over the counter, so OTC trading. So you had to find an investor that had the Ozon shares, and you had to individually come to an agreement, and then your brokers had to agree as well to transfer the shares. And later, trading continued on the Astana International Exchange, and I know that multiple investors bought on the Astana International Exchange, the EAHCISS exchange, those Ozon depositary shares. And trading on the EAHCISS has now also stopped. So now the only place where Ozon is still being traded is the Moscow exchange. So the depositary shares are no longer being traded on the Moscow exchange, but only the ordinary Russian shares. So Ozon underwent redomiciliation to Russia in September 2025. And what happened basically back then is that the Cypriot shares that were being registered in the Cypriot shareholder registry were being moved to the Russian shareholder registry, and they automatically turned to Russian ordinary shares because those were simply the shares being held in the registry, and the registry was ported to a Russian registry. And then in October 2024, we saw that the DTC, the Depositary Trust Company, placed Ozon on a global lock, and that meant basically that normal conversion procedures of the depositary shares into the Cypriot registry shares became impossible. I know some investors that try to go through conversion at the start of 2025, but it was basically being refused by the by the custodian of Euroclear in the US. So Euroclear tried to then place an order for conversion, but the shares could not be delivered to Bank of New York Mellon because of the global lock that was imposed by the DTC. And the DTC is the central depository in central securities depository in the US. So DTC basically is involved in all the transfers that take place of the Ozon depositary shares. And we'll go back to that later.
I would like to add that Ozon nowadays has plans for broadening business to Uzbekistan and other countries. So they will again develop IT technologies via business model and presence in Uzbekistan, and they will definitely be developing such model like financial marketplace. Because Ozon announced that they will be practicing new technologies for increasing coverage of their service. And this may be interesting for investors to see that a retailer develops to combine retail business and financial marketplace business.
Thank you, yes. And maybe it's good to add that those investors that held the Ozon depositary shares in Russian infrastructure, they don't have to do anything. Their depositary shares were automatically being converted into ordinary shares. I think this was back in October, probably, that this happened in October 2025. So right now we're really talking about forced conversion, and that is for investors that hold their depositary shares in non-Russian infrastructure. So through Euroclear, through the DTC, through Clearstream, through any broker outside of Russia.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since Irene and I both like the law, we also like to touch upon the law in this webinar. We'll try not to focus on the legislation for Russian shareholders. So we'll try to focus on the legislation that is relevant for Western investors. And we'll go through that. This is just an overview of the relevant legislation. So the first thing you should be aware of is that there is currently legislation in Russia that basically prevents Russian companies from continuing their depositary receipts programs abroad. And although the Russian government can issue a permit to continue such program, we are not aware of any permit being issued to Ozon. And what we get back from Ozon is that they're not planning to have a depositary share program for any time soon. So the current program will be terminated, and that probably means that BNY will liquidate any depositary shares that are left in the program after termination. And again, because voluntary conversion or the normal conversion of depositary shares into ordinary shares has not been possible, this is basically the only chance to now do so. And BNY published several announcements, and their last announcement on October 29th also clearly stated the books are now closed. and they are closed indefinitely. And in the Ozon FAQ, they're clearly warning for liquidation as well. So this is directly from the Ozon FAQ. Following the ADR program termination, the depositary bank, the Bank of New York Mellon, will have the right to sell Ozon ordinary shares for which the ADRs are issued, after which it will distribute the proceeds from the sale among the remaining ADR holders, minus the depositary bank's fees. Any such sale could potentially take considerable time and be conducted at a price significantly below the market value of Ozon ordinary shares. And in the past, we have seen some depositary banks liquidate their depositary shares, and usually this was for discounts of at least 50% to the normal market value. So if you continue to hold your depositary shares, it is very likely that BNY will sell them at some point in the future. We'll try to get permission for that, and we'll sell them for a significant discount, probably at least 50%. Then the basics of the forced conversion procedure. So the legal framework is the Russian legislation, and the Bank of Russia established further rules to fill in the details of the procedure. But the main points are that you have 120 days from the start date of the process. And the window opened on the 1st of December 2025, and it will end the window on the 31st of March 2026. So that is a period of 4 months. It's a very short period, and we're already 1 month into the process. And as a general guide, in order to leave enough time for the steps to take place in Moscow, you should really aim to deliver your documents to Moscow before the end of January. So that leaves about 2 months time to go through all the steps in Moscow, and you really need that time. Because I think Irina calculated that she needs probably about 42 business days for the process in Moscow. So that leaves you, maybe about 2 weeks to arrange for all the steps you have to undertake in your own local setting, and we'll go into that later. Because you need to involve a lot of people in Russia, so certified translators, you need notaries in Russia, and you probably also want hand delivery or personal delivery of the documents to the registrar. It is very much advised to hire a representative in Russia. You can also travel there yourself, but even then you need to know where to go, where the translators are, which notaries do the right services that you require. So even if you go to Russia personally, it's very much recommended to hire a representative that knows the procedure, that knows the way around. And as a general start, please study the FAQ issued by Ozon carefully. It will set out a lot of the questions and the answer to those questions, and also study the rules and documents that were issued by the registrar Register Proton. And Register Proton, that is the current registrar of Ozon, and it is also the party that is responsible for for judging all the applications and processing the applications. So that is important to know as well. Do you want to add anything, Irina?
Yes, I already visited Proton and submitted a set of documents for one investor, and what I saw that and find out that for Proton this is first experience when Proton participates in forced conversion. They have such small office for accepting applications that it is clear that this is not main office, but just office designated only to accept applications, a set of documents. And the person on the desk who is accepting applications is not able to answer every question, but they are cooperative, and in general, Proton by now didn't show some high responsiveness or some high speed of communication, because I submitted documents on December 12th, and by now no single reply except details for settlement payment of a fee for the forced conversion for Proton. So I think that on the side of Proton, the process is organized in a way that they only accept applications, and on the later stage they will do intensified processing of documents, and will be sending out to investors confirmations of the acceptance of documents, confirmations of satisfactory compliance, and the later investors submit documents, they increase risks to miss time and not being able to apply properly and in full, because Proton is not communicating any questions or objections on the early stage. They will do this at the later stage. So my opinion is, and I actually did according on the previous experience, I calculated the time necessary for each step. As you explained, after delivery of documents to Russia, to Moscow, they need to be translated by few iterations. First iterations, this is translation of power of attorney and passport. And on the basis of power of attorney, next step will be processing notarial observation of evidences. After notarial observation of evidences, some brokerage web page websites are not always possible to translate by Google Translation. For example, there is no such problem with Interactive Broker, because Interactive Broker is multi-jurisdiction company, and it has such functions of website and can be translated by Google Translation in the browser. And it is not always possible to do same with other brokers. So often there is a second iteration of translation of the documentation attached to the notarial protocol, and every iteration requires time. Translators, for example, ordinary time is up to 7 business days, depending on the current workload in this particular office of translator. Sometimes they can do more quickly, and if they have too much workload, so they may take up to 7 days. Notary usually also has some schedule of assignments, and it's usually requires near 5 days planning ahead. So These 5 days require also and include preliminary work before visiting notary. For example, I explain to investors in detail on individual basis what is plan of observation, so that investor could find proper operations, proper transactions, proper functions, proper reports and statements in own account with his broker. So sometimes it's necessary also to do such invisible part of work to confirm identity of the investor, because often investors have different spelling of their names in their brokers' accounts, and this name of holder of account may be different to the spelling of the name in the passport of the investor. So in such cases, it's necessary also to process some communication with the broker for the purpose of confirming identification of investor. This is may have a form like request to confirm that my short name indicated in broker's account is the same person as the holder of my passport and full name written in the passport. Such request, it is shall be processed in the communication window, support chat, and this later will be added to notarial protocol of evidences as a first step for identifying the person of investor. And as we know, nowadays support may be automated, and not every robot or artificial intelligence, this bot can answer properly. So this will be done as individual work with the investor to confirm identity of the investor. And after work with translators, after work with notary, there will be a next step, filing documentation to Proton register, and they also require previously appointment for time slot, and to my surprise, they accept applications only in the first half of the day. So there is no so much time slots, and the later deadline, the later individual or investor to deadline, there will be more risks that will be lack of time slots.
Yes, because if I compare it to the EAHCISS procedure, I think maybe half of the applications actually came in the last 2 weeks for EAHCISS, because the period is so short and people basically need the whole period. So all the applications come in the last week, and then they are completely overrun with requests for time slots. So again, this is a point to take into consideration and really start early to finish the process in time.
So I even plan as a specific step to do on a daily basis booking of necessary time slots for those investors who will be cooperating with me on this process.
And if you then go through the process successfully, you will receive your Ozon shares in an account with the registrar. And this is good to know because some of you may already have an account with a Russian broker, say Cifra broker or Gazprom Bank, but you cannot receive the Ozon shares there directly. So what Proton will do is they will open an account for the investor in the share registry, and they will, credit the Ozon shares there in your account directly with the registrar. And as you already said, Arina, Proton is a relatively new registrar. They were only founded this year, and my feeling is that Ozon decided to, work with a very new registrar, also because basically all the other registrars were sanctioned by the US. So I think they decided, okay, if we now start a new registrar, we can work with a non-sanctioned registrar. And to our knowledge, Proton has not been sanctioned since by either the US or the EU. So this is good to know as well from a sanctions perspective. And if you are an investor from a country that is considered non-friendly from a Russian legislative perspective, you will receive the shares in a Type C account. So this means that there will be restrictions on the account, so you cannot directly sell those shares, for example. And it's good to know that you have to prove that you own the shares before the date of redomiciliation. So if you bought them after the 26th of September 2025, it will be more difficult to receive those shares. I think it may even be formally not allowed to then convert the shares. But I think the vast majority of you will have obtained those shares before the 26th of September 2025, so it should not be an issue. And if you're a Russian and you bought those shares after, those depositary shares after the date of redomiciliation, these will be subject to separate accounting rules. So you can also not directly transfer those Ozon ordinary shares to a broker and then sell them on the Moscow exchange, for example. But in the future, especially if restrictions of Type C accounts are lifted, you should be able to then transfer your shares from Proton to a Russian broker and then sell them or trade them on the Moscow exchange. And it's good to know that Irina also made provisions for this in the power of attorney to make sure that she can do this for you once this opportunity arises.
Yes. And for the purpose of conversion, right now, only Register Proton is authorized to participate in this process, and there is no option to order allocation of Ozon shares to some brokerage account with Cifra broker or other Russian broker. Only by opening account at Register Proton is possible to receive shares, ordinary shares of Proton. Later, there may be options to transfer accounting of your shares from register to Russian broker. Sometimes investors prefer this way of accounting by just keeping accounting of all the shares in one broker office rather than in different registers of different companies. So, taking into account that on December 22 is the date, registration date for the purpose of dividends. I'm going to combine notarial observation of shareholding of depositary receipts on December 22 of this year for the purpose of claiming dividends of Ozon later. This will be a later process. So let's see what next.
Yeah, we already went through parts of this, but it's good to summarize it again. So basically, there's 3 documents that you need to prepare locally in your country of residence. So investors need to go and visit the notary to get 3 things done, basically. So you need to sign your power of attorney in front of the notary, and then the notary will certify your signature. The notary will also need to take a notarial copy of your passport. And lastly, you will need to sign the questionnaire of Proton also in front of the notary. And again, the notary will need to certify your signature. And then you need to take all those documents that were signed in front of the notary or the notarial copy of your passport, and you need to go to the government administration that is responsible for giving out apostles. So you need to have all those documents apostilled. And if your country is not part of the Apostle Convention, then you need to go through the formal legalization process in order for your government to certify the signature of the notary. So this is in order to prove that the notary is actually an official notary and is allowed to sign off those public documents. In practice, it's not very easy to find a local notary that is willing to service you. So as an alternative to going through a local notary, you can use the notary service of a local Russian consulate in your country. Many Russian consulates will offer notarial services, but in our experience, it usually is a little bit difficult to get an appointment, or you have to wait for getting an appointment, and you would sometimes need to bring a certified interpreter with you in order for the Russian notary to verify that you also understand what you're signing for. So if you don't speak Russian, you will probably need to take a Russian translator with you to the Russian consulate. Right, it depends per consulate, but this is at least practice in the Netherlands.
Let me add one more practical opportunity. Russian consulates latest practice allow to communicate power of attorney certified in Russian consulate digitally to the office of local Russian notary. This procedure is called like confirmation of power of attorney issued in Russian consulate. For example, if you visit Russian consulate and make a power of attorney in Russian, sign it, it is the document certified by consulate in hard copy and in digital copy. So the next, if there is difficulty in delivery power of attorney to Russia, there is option to visit Russian notary in Moscow and to ask for such notarial service like confirmation of authenticity of power of attorney issued in consulate. You know, this is like you issue power of attorney in Russian consulate, and without delivery of hard copy to Russia, there is experience to receive a notarially certified copy of this document in Russian notarial office. This
Yeah,
is
yes,
like,
I think they make a cryptographic copy that is digitally signed and then can be
yes, yes.
used by
So this is like inter-offices. This is communication between consulate and Russian law notary in Moscow to confirm a copy of power of attorney issued in a consulate outside Russia. So I had such experience this year. One investor issued power of attorney in Malta, and such document was released in hard copy by Russian notary.
Yes, thank you for adding that. And then in some countries, there are government bodies that will legalize signatures. And from past experience, we know that this is often deemed equivalent, but we cannot be sure how Proton will react to this. So it's not a preferred option, but it is sometimes an alternative that works. And as an ultimate backup option, this is also something that worked in the past, but is not something that we prefer to use, is using an online notary such as notary.com. Again, we have had success in the past, but it may not work with Proton this time. But these are options to discuss with Irina if all the other preferred options fail or are not possible. Yeah, is there something that you want to add to that?
Yes, let me explain why power of attorney issued by notarity.com may be not accepted by Proton because such power of attorney issued by notarity.com in a foreign country outside Russia may fully comply with the local requirements, but in hard copy of this document, power of attorney certified by notarity.com, finally there will be like scan of signature of the principal. And according to Russian rules, power of attorney should bear only original signature of handmade signature of the principal. So it is highly recommended to make power of attorney in advance at local notary office and arrange quick delivery to Moscow or in Russian consulate. And for delivery of the document, let me indicate such logistic company originally from Russia, and nowadays it has offices in many countries. It is called SDEC. SDEC is a company, also has different agency relationships for reshipment, transshipment with other international couriers. So SDEC is written spelling like CDEK.com. I will check this address.
Yeah,
For example,
it's CD EK indeed. Yeah.
Yes, and one person delivered from United States. It took only 12 days. And for this distance is not too big time, because not too long period. Because from Cyprus, for example, sometimes it takes near 3 weeks to deliver document.
Yes, so this is sometimes to keep in, something to keep in mind as well, that mail to Russia, if available, it will often be slow. There are workarounds, so you can indeed use a mail forwarder. So there's mail forwarding companies in Serbia or Kazakhstan that you can use, and then you will mail it to them in Serbia, for example, and then they will ship it on to Moscow. But an alternative that is also sometimes used is to send it to someone that lives close to the border of the Polish Kaliningrad border, and then there are drivers that frequently travel between Poland and Kaliningrad, and they will also, for a charge, take letters with them. So you can then express ship it to Poland, and then they will take the letter with them to Kaliningrad and then post it to Moscow from Kaliningrad. This is another route that is sometimes also being used.
Thank you for such option.
Again, a general rule is that all the copies that you provide need to be notarized as well, and then the apostle, then the signature of the notary again needs to be verified through an apostle. So this applies to your passport, for example. So you can't just make your own copy of your passport and ship it, but it really needs to be a notarized copy of your passport. And you can find the body that issues apostles on the website of the Hague Convention Treaty. And again, the general rule is that all documents then need to be translated into Russian, with the translation being certified by a Russian notary. But Irina will take care of that. So once she gets the documents in English, she has her contacts with a Russian translator that can then translate the documents from English or another language to Russia. And then a Russian notary will verify or certify the translation. We already touched upon the procedure to collect evidence of ownership. Basically, there's only one route that is commonly being used successfully, and that is having a Russian notary log into your online Western brokerage account, and then the Russian notary will take screenshots of your holdings and will verify your holdings in your online account with your Western broker. In the past, people have tried to sort of gain documents from their broker that they hold certain positions, but normally, Proton would be very strict in reviewing those documents. So normally, those copies that are provided by your broker would need to be signed by your broker by an authorized person in front of a local notary to verify that the person who is signing it on behalf of the broker is actually authorized to do so, and that person is indeed the person signing, and then the notary verifies the identity of that person, and then you would then have an apostle on that as well. But in practice, this is very, very difficult to realize. So in practice, the best route to take is to simply have a Russian notary log into your Western brokerage account and then verify these holdings through this method. So again, you would probably want to include in your online notary account. I would be certain. I would go and play safe here, and I would try to include your whole period of ownership. You may get away with proving that you held before the date of redomiciliation, so before the 26th of September. But I would probably be safe here and include your ownership transcripts, proof of ownership all the way through through the current date. and also include an overview of the 22nd of December 2025 to show that you held those depositary shares on the date of the dividend registration date. So you can then more easily claim your 143 rubles per share in dividends. And this session with a Russian notary takes some preparation, because the Russian notary needs to know where to click, how to navigate in the online portal. So you would normally sit down with Irina or your representative to really go through the layout of your brokerage account in order for your representative and the Russian notary to fluently navigate through it and collect all the necessary evidence. And it depends a bit on the notary, but you can often join such a session via video connection. And it's good to know that you can't just go to a random Russian notary to do this. It is quite a specialized service, and there's only a few Russian notaries that actually offer this service. So, yeah, you really have to know to which notary to go in order to get this service done. And Irina has contacts with different notaries that would be able to complete this service.
Let me add also some news from recent impressions on this subject. Such form of notarial observation, like connecting investor through telemost, telebridge, teleconference, now have been accepted by a number of companies like Nornickel, Sberbank, many others, Tinkoff, and last month, for example, Lukoil didn't like a protocol which was made through video conference. Such perception of Lukoil is not clear to challenge such protocol, because protocol is the document in capacity of the notary. This is notary who is responsible to make protocol properly. And this is not Lukoil who can challenge the document made by notary. But in reality, latest practice last month that, for example, Lukoil didn't like such experience. This gives us like grounds to stick to the most simple way for notary, not to do protocol by video conference, rather by entering with login and password. So it is investors' interest to make such access of notary to be safe for investor. Investor can do necessary settings in own brokerage account to limit access of notary with the right only and capacity only to see page reports, to generate reports and print them, and excluding any transactions, of course, for the purpose of safety of assets.
Yeah. So I think the conclusion is that yes, we understand that shareholders maybe they're a bit anxious to hand out their passwords to a Russian notary. But I think in practice, most experiences have been very positive, and you can indeed sometimes also create guest accounts or create restrictions if you're uncomfortable with just sharing your normal login details.
Yes, I can explain why in general we did teleconference observation. For example, some investors just wanted to control this process, to participate in this process. And when such investor is outside Russia, so we did such teleconference. In other case, when for example, broker or bank is not possible to open on the territory of Russia, like for example, Switzerland, Swiss banks has such settings that it's not possible to open on the territory of Russia and make entry into the account from the territory of Russia. This is Swiss bank and also Saxe bank and England-based UK banks. So anyway, the best is for investors to arrange safe, limited access for notary with necessary restrictions. I agree with you.
Yes, and yeah, maybe this is going into too much detail, but if you cannot access the site easily from Russia, there's sometimes also an option to use a VPN. Some notaries will work with a VPN to then be able to bypass the limited access from Russia.
The specific here is that Russian notary are prohibited to use VPN. They actually has something like VPN for notarial purposes for inter offices of between public offices in Russia. This is separate VPN, separate designated VPN for notary. But VPN which allows to hide entry from Russia for this purpose of arranging protocol is prohibited to use to be used by notary, and some companies insist that it should be clearly written clearly written in the protocol that no equipment, no software like VPN was downloaded and set up on the notary's computer. And anyway, I heard that there is, for example, another notary who uses VPN. I don't know how they do this. Maybe they have more advanced IT support. I know contacts of this notary. It works in Moscow City. So in case there will be need to use VPN, I will contact such notary. This is like option one, additional alternative option. And second alternative option, notary I cooperate with recently allowed to use investors' laptop for notarial observation. So if investor has VPN on computer, this also can be done this way. I myself can try to use VPN.
Yeah, but I think in general it's not necessary, because most of the times you would be able to go through the normal procedure and get this done. So it's not to worry you, but I just wanted to add that if there are any issues, then there's usually solutions for those issues as well.
Yes. So 95% notarial observations are possible without any VPN and any other solutions. But if additional measures will be needed, there are solutions, yes.
And then there's another hurdle that sometimes needs to be taken in the procedure, and that is to identify the chain of custody. and why is this required? Because again, it is a procedure of forced conversion. So what will happen is that Proton will simply take out those shares out of the account of Bank of New York Mellon and will then place them into the account of the investor that applied for forced conversion. And that means that there is shares lacking in the account of Bank of New York Mellon. And so they want to reconcile the books, so to speak. So they want to know where they have to debit those shares from in order to make the books match again. So this is also why they ask for a chain of custody to also be able to make reconciliation a little bit easier. So what the chain of custody would normally look like is something like represented here on the right. So the Bank of New York Mellon is the ADR issuer. Then they have an account with, or DTC has an account in the issuer. And I think formally there is also Computershare that is the registrar for the Bank of New York Mellon, but we'll leave that out of the chain of custody for now. And then there will be some broker that has an account with DTC. This could be Euroclear, this could be Citibank, and then within Euroclear or Citibank, another broker may have an account with them. So there is a long chain to go to the ultimate investor. So if we take Freedom Finance, for example, Freedom Finance has an account with Euroclear, Euroclear has an account with DTC, and DTC has then an account in the share registry. But this chain can be significantly longer if you work with lesser known brokers or has an account with lesser known brokers that may use primary brokers for their services. It is a little bit of a challenge to establish the full chain of custody. There are ways to try to reconstruct it, but it's good to ask your broker for this chain of custody. And if they refuse, then it's good to have that in writing too, so that you can add that to the application. It's good to know as well that you are allowed to resubmit any application that was rejected. So the rule is that Proton has to make a decision on your application in 20 business days, so 4 weeks. And if they reject your application, they have to let you know why they rejected it in order to give you a chance to correct any documents, to correct your files, and that you then can resubmit before the end of March in order to have a successful application in the end. And again, this is a reason to start early, to have a chance to resubmit if Proton decides to reject your application for any reason. Is there anything you want to add?
Yes, I think that for resubmission, it's necessary near 10 business days, for example, because if Proton is not satisfied with something, this will require to make some change, not just to application. This may require again contacting broker, again to verify custody chain. So we cannot even predict what Proton may don't like and what they can request. I just hope that Proton is interested in successful procedure and will be client-centered and client assisting, because there will be intensification of applications at the end, and Register Proton has commission or fee for such service. So I hope they should cooperate. But anyway, investor should make necessary efforts and in advance to comply 100% for what is clear as requirements, and even just to make additional efforts, as I explained, to confirm full and short name of investor, to arrange properly application in time, in advance, and I think everything should be fine.
Thank you. And then, well, we already touched upon the complexities of the procedure. So, yeah, you would again be advised to, request help from a Russian-based representative. Yeah, and as EAHCISS, we have worked in the past a lot with Irina. So maybe you can explain what you offer for this help, Irina.
Yes, before starting cooperation for the purpose of first forced conversion, I can do individual consultation for investor, and I can explain again a step of necessary actions to prepare documentation, to deliver such documentation to Moscow. I also help investors to optimize and catch time lost, for example, if this is a case, because the delivery of documents require time, and we can catch lost time, for example, by early involvement of translators and by early arranging appointments with notary and with and necessary appointment with the register proton. And from my experience, I see that such connections with notary, translator, and experience in dealing with proton allow to fully prepare documents, and investor can have even support in Telegram chat with me. So by now, these processes are not novice for me and my colleagues. So I am ready to provide necessary legal support. Any request from investor, of course, will be anyway treated as the matter of urgency, because not much time left. What we can give to investors is like a draft of power of attorney. What we can give again, samples of documents that shall be submitted, like application form, consent for processing personal data, then questionnaire, and for notarial observation, investor should prepare some plan for observation. What documents, what transactions, what shareholding should be observed by notary, and such plan for observation has individual nature, because every investor may have own custody chain, different brokers, different custody chain. So I also assist to investors to identify what shall be included into the plan for notarial observation. All these steps are aimed to fully comply with requirements of Ozon and register proton. So I welcome those who needs assistance. And Casting, thank you for organizing this webinar. If there is need or interest to download necessary forms like application, questionnaire, consent, and also power of attorney, I can send such forms for the use.
Yes, thank you. And then maybe to discuss your fees, because you have a package that includes all that you just said, including visiting the notary, preparing the notary inspection, etc. And the fee for that package, you fill in all the application forms, is 2,500 euros. And there's a for those that are very late, and there is an additional fee. So for those that start after the 10th of February, the late fee will be in total 3,500 euros for the package. Maybe it's good to say that you have a euro account, so and it is possible to simply transfer euros to your account from Europe. It's very easy and quick, actually. So I know investors that transfer money to you, and it arrives in about an hour or so. It goes through Raiffeisen Bank in Austria.
Yes.
And there are some additional costs to keep in mind. So these are the costs that are directly charged by the notary, by the translators, and those are carried on one-to-one. And yeah, normally those costs for translation and notary inspection fees are about 500 euros, but it really depends on the individual inspection and how many pages are included in the notarial report. And in addition,
Yes.
Proton will also charge fees, and those are passed on to the investor as well, of course.
Proton charge fees are calculated on the quantity of securities. So I cannot tell this will be some reasonable amount. So I can give example like for conversion of 50,000 depository receipts, fee of Proton is 50,000 rubles. This is like also like 500 euros.
Yes, thank you. So this is good to know as well. And I think their fees may be based on the normal cancellation fee of the depositary bank too, but this is something to maybe look into later.
Actually, they do not announce clearly, but I know just that fee is calculated on the quantity of depository receipts, quantity of shares. They have some basic amount and not exceeding amount. So this will be reasonable and affordable amount of fee.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Maybe it's good to say that, I mean, you have a fairly small office. So should there be many requests for help, then you maybe also be able to refer investors to other offices. Um, and in our experience, your fees are fairly low compared to bigger law firms. So there's other law firms that also offer help. So it may be, it all depends on the investor where he feels comfortable. I think many investors in the past felt comfortable with having one-to-one contact with Irina, but we've also seen some investors that wanted to go with a bigger firm such as Magenta Law. Magenta Law firm is also a member of EAHCISS, as is Irina. Irina is also a member of EAHCISS. But there are a bigger firm that fees maybe higher. So it depends on the individual preference of the investor, but many investors in the past have had really good experience with IRENA.
Thank you. That's right. If, for example, there will be too many requests for legal support of this participation in conversion, of course, I will give contacts of my colleagues who practice in big law firms or who practice as a self-employed lawyer. So, of course, we will try to connect people so that everyone would have opportunity, investors to have opportunity to participate in conversion, and lawyers always able to work in intensification regime. So we always try to help, even if someone late.
Thank you. Then maybe good to go into the last slide. So many will be from Western countries that impose sanctions against Russia. And so it's good to know that Visa Proton is a new registrar. And I looked at the companies that they serve, and they serve only 5 companies, and Ozon is basically their main client. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ozon actually sort of indirectly founded this new registrar, because it's very common for big Russian companies to work with a registrar that is very closely connected to that specific company. And to our knowledge, Proton has not yet been sanctioned. We cannot rule out that it will happen, but at least at this point, they have not been sanctioned by either the US or the EU to our knowledge. And the same applies to Ozon. And it's good to know that because the shares are being received inside of the registry and with the registrar, NSD is not involved in the transaction. So if you have any concerns about NSD being involved, they are not involved because this is a transaction that takes place directly in the shareholder registry. And NSD is a sanctioned entity, so it's good for you to know that they are not involved in this procedure or the transaction that follows from the completion of the procedure. But sanctions against NSD may restrict you to then further along the line move those shares into a brokerage account and sell them on the Moscow Stock Exchange. So this is something to be aware of, and once the time happens when restrictions are being lifted, it is good to then verify that you can then also transfer your shares to a Russian brokerage firm to sell them on the Moscow Stock Exchange. And it's always a good thing to verify any possible sanction restrictions with local sanctions lawyers, because we're not specialists in the sanctions law of every individual Western country. And then it's time for questions. I don't think that any questions were being asked. Then, yeah, thank you very much, Irina, for joining us today in this webinar. Is there anything that you would like to close with?
Thank you. This is a very interesting experience. For me, our cooperation, I hope that following Ozon conversion, there will be other additional subjects for cooperation, because there will be new types of processes like reconciliation of waterfall of dividends, because some dividends to the clients of Western brokers are paid on the territory of Russia, outside Western brokers. And with the progress in geopolitical situation, there will be new change, new challenge and at least reconciliation of books, reconciliation of waterfall of dividends payments, and other subjects for cooperation. Because nowadays I see that not every investor receives dividends, and people will be just raising these issues with Western brokers, and there will be processes for search and investigation where dividends or coupons just remain. So I wish everyone who watched this webinar to successfully undergo conversion of Ozon, to obtain Ozon dividends, and to participate in other EAHCISS events, webinars, and in discussions organized by EAHCISS. Thank you for inviting.
Yes, you're very, very welcome. And if you have any questions left, you can always contact us at contact@eahacis.org, or you can contact Irina at info@electis.ru. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you at the next webinar.